I welcome you. I'm Connie Beard on behalf of the McLean County Republicans. We're delighted to provide these opportunities for voters to be able to listen to the candidates directly, kind of unfiltered. I know in some formats, these gentlemen have come into a debate setting, and debate has its merits in certain cases, but I also think it's nice to be able to provide voters a chance just to listen to the candidates, speak from their hearts, to address specific questions from the voters themselves, and try to share their plans and their vision for serving. So that's what we hope to do tonight. I am so pleased to have both of the gentlemen here with us tonight. Mboka Mwabwe, and forgive me, I have already apologized to him, knowing that I will not be very skilled at sharing Mboka's full name, but I'm grateful for him being here tonight, and as well as Mike Straza. I will say Jackie Gunderson was invited, and she did give me a very polite response back and apologizing, but she has a commitment for her college degree that she has to finish in the classwork tonight. And I'm, as a teacher myself, I'm the last one to begrudge anyone the opportunity to pursue their education. So we understand that excuse, and I was grateful that she responded in the manner in which she did. So, but at the same time, we're pushing on because I think it's important. There's a short number of days to be able to really get to know the candidates. So we want to be able to provide you with an opportunity. The gentleman, we picked names in what order before we started officially. So by luck of the draw, Mike Straza will be our first candidate to introduce himself, and then Mboka will be coming up following him. I've given them both about a 5-minute time frame in which to just speak to you about their desire to serve and their vision for if they were elected as mayor. So Mike, please step up to the mic and just share.
Okay, well, thank you again for organizing this, for having an opportunity to share a little bit about myself and my vision and what I see needs to happen in Bloomington as the next mayor. Again, my name is Mike Straza, running for mayor of Bloomington. I've been in this community for almost 40 years. I started here in 1983. Went to Bloomington Junior High, went to Bloomington High School, where I met my wife, and we have been married for almost, we've been about 29 years coming up in July. Earned an economics degree at ISU, and from that, my passion was put into business, being an entrepreneur and a consultant. And by owning and managing and launching companies such as ZDI, which is now called Room Ready, Presto Media, Emmanuel Health Center, and Primus Trauma Care. It's just been a great opportunity for all the years, 25 plus years, to be able to provide jobs, hundreds of jobs to people, supporting people's families, contributing to the local economy. And that's what the biggest thing is, being part of this community. The amount has been given back to me, just the opportunities have been given to me through this community. This is what I have done with it so far in the 25 years I've been doing business. I want to put my skills to work for the city. It is truly a servant type heart that I have, that I want to build Bloomington together, and I want to do that as a group, as a collective, as we do this. As we talk about what is my vision for Bloomington is to be the entrepreneurial capital of the Midwest. And that's something that I really truly believe. It's just not words. It is something I think that we can really do in this community. And we have the resources. We just need to start using those resources in the correct way. Through that, it's going to be accelerating economic growth, investing in infrastructure, and providing balanced leadership in our diverse community. When you look at that, it's like, well, how does that work? Those are great words. Those are things that everyone says, or one of the, economic growth, invest in infrastructure, and providing balanced leadership. And we'll walk through that tonight as we walk through these questions. I'm sure that's going to be some of the things. Is it roads? Is it water, sewer? Yes, it's all of that, but it's so much more that we can do beyond that. But those are very important things, because those is what the city is supposed to be doing, is taking care of the major functions of our community, is road safety, and it's just the infrastructure itself. So when I look at that, is what building this together, how we're going to do that. And it's going to be a challenge. We have a challenge ahead of us. And again, this is why I say I am the candidate that for mayor is the best choice, is because I've been through these things before as a business owner. I've worked with people, nonprofit and for-profit companies, and helped them through some hard times. And we can all go back through from the 90s, from the 80s for savings and loans, to the 90s, the stock market crash, to 9/11, to the housing bust, a lot of things. We've been very fortunate living in a community that has helped us to stay off, not have such a huge impact like other communities. But that's not something we can always rely on. And that's why, again, going back to my experience in the business world and working with multiple organizations and being part of boards, I've been serving on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've been on the board for American Red Cross, Small Business Development Center out of Illinois Wesleyan I've been involved in. And these are things, many other things that I've been involved in, that shows that I have a commitment to this community, because I love this community. I feel like this community has given me so much, and I feel like this is something I can give back and do it in a way that is fiscally responsible, financially, but also too is showing how we can be the, the example of our city, our state, our federal government, just showing how it can be done, and how it can be done without being divisive, and how we can do it with doing it with the right way, and showing that we do care and that we can build a community that's people be proud of. And I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Mike, very much. And now, Mboka, would you please come to the mic and share your heart about your desire to serve as mayor?
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Connie, for organizing this wonderful event. I wish we could all be there in person and just kind of fellowship in person, but these are the days that we live in, and we have to make the best of it. So I definitely appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about myself and why I want to serve as a mayor of Bloomington. I've been on the council for a number of years, the Bloomington City Council, and I do know, as a result of that, some people may know me, but sometimes I think, when people know you, it can be on the surface level. So I thought I would share a little bit about myself so that people get to know me in a little bit more depth. So I was born in Kinshasa, the Democratic Republic of Congo. My father became an employee of UNICEF, which is a specialized UN agency focused on the welfare of mothers and children. So as a result of that, we lived in several different countries on the African continent, Senegal, Ivory Coast, and then the other Congo across the river. And when it became time for me to go to college, I decided to come to the United States because I had always been fascinated by American culture. I've always been fascinated by the English language, and I thought, this would be the best place for me to study. So landed in New York in 1989. Decided that New York was a little bit too big for a student and a place where you could have a little bit too much fun. So I decided to come to Illinois because my brother was already here, and he happens to be an employee at the University of Illinois. So came here, came to ISU in 1990. I got a bachelor's degree in mathematics and a graduate degree in curriculum and instruction, basically education. My wife, Stacy, and I met while in grad school. We got married in 1996, moved to Boston for a few months, and had to learn our second lesson that big cities are a little bit too expensive for us to live. So we decided to come back to Bloomington Normal. And we decided to start a family, have 4 beautiful kids who are our pride and joy. They're all our Unit 5 products. And we also became full-time employees at ISU in 1997. So I've been working in the areas of student conduct, housing, diversity programming, but also harassment and discrimination investigations. I was appointed to the city council in 2011 by Mayor Stockton and elected in 2013 and then re-elected in 2017. I was elected as Mayor Pro Tem by my peers on the council unanimously in 2019, and I've had the opportunity to chair meetings in the absence of Mayor Renner, and just sub in for different functions where he couldn't be available. My decision to run for mayor was not based on political opportunity. I was encouraged by a number of community members who have watched my 10 years of service on the city council and believe in my ability to provide stability and bring our community together. Like me, many folks were concerned about the level of polarization that we were facing, last year. Within the country, but they're also concerned about the health and economic challenges that we would be facing due to the pandemic. So we decided, they encouraged me to run for mayor. I have identified 3 specific goals that I would like to focus on. And, primarily, this is based on my experience on the council. One of the things that we've heard often is streets, fix my street, fix my street. There's something wrong. I don't like it. So, one of my focuses is going to be infrastructure and facilities, so fixing what we have. And in addition to continuing to provide the core services that we rely on, such as public safety, safe water, recreation, because like I said before, particularly when it comes to streets, these are the things that people see. And if they see that we get distracted by other endeavors and don't fix the things that they want us to fix, it's very difficult for them to trust us. The next thing I want to focus on, obviously, is growing the local economy because, as I can see, there's going to be increasing competition between cities to attract and retain workers. So I do think that's something that we do need to spend quite a bit of time focusing on. But again, my concern, of course, how can we address all those things if we are not united as a community? And I know, I can tell you, at the moment, I do have, a member of my campaign team, who happens to be a Republican, and and people are giving me a hard time because of it. But to me, I think you need to bring a number of different perspectives. If you are going to be able to govern, it's always good to hear from people who may have different points of views. So we're gonna continue. We're gonna plow forward, and because it's important to hear from all voices, particularly at the municipal level, which is supposed to be nonpartisan. I believe everyone has ideas that are worth considering. And therefore it's important to listen to those folks. And this is where the last part of my agenda comes into play, is to really build more community, to bring us together as a community, to put aside the divisions of the past, because I do think at the municipal level this is something that we cannot afford to do. We can't be divided. We live too close to one another to be divided and really to act as the enemy of each other just because we have different positions on various issues. So again, so to me, I think that the biggest question is, who is best able to bring the community together, because infrastructure and economy, those are things that I think are fairly are easier to do, but bringing people together, especially when they don't want to, is a little bit more difficult. So, and I do believe I bring a variety of experiences to the table to show that I'm the most suitable candidate. The vast majority of my professional and civic life has been about building consensus around a variety of issues, whether as a council member or as an ISU employee. And I know the position of mayor is one that is very challenging, takes preparation, and something that can not be casually undertaken. But I do believe that with my experience, I'm ready to serve as mayor. And I would ask for everyone's vote, on April 6th. I think you're muted, Connie.
I'm my own worst advisor.
Yeah, that's the hazard of.
I want to encourage those who are attending to go ahead and take time to type in and write a question. We have a couple coming in, but this is a time to start doing that. And I'm also going to take this moment to give a little commercial in the sense that this event will be recorded and posted on our GOP website under the Zoom candidate forums. And so you can go at any time to review, or you can reference people to that webpage. We are collecting all of the candidate forums that we are performing. We did Tuesday night, we did the Bloomington Alderman. We've done the normal town council. We have done the normal mayor. We have done, on Tuesday, we will do the school board races and have members that are candidates that are vying for the school board. And that form will also be posted on our website. So please keep an eye out, reference people to it. We're doing our best to try to help people have information so they can make an informed decision. So now let's start seeing what we can do about some questions. One of the questions is directed to Mike in reference to your endorsement by responsible cities and unions. Traditionally, let's be candid.
Oh, yeah.
Unions traditionally have not been always in favor of conservative somewhat candidates. And there is a question about responsible cities in the same way. So I would like, our questionnaire is asking how you respond to those endorsements.
Yeah, no problem. Again, not surprising. That those questions are not, they've been asked to me several times. And I'll start with responsible cities. That was there's a lot of things back and forth of what responsible city is and what it's not. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I was one of the people that helped start it. And what that meant is I opened up the bank account and organized as a PAC. That was it. The vision is to bring in quality candidates. It wasn't about Democrat versus Republican versus Libertarian versus whatever, fill in the blank. It wasn't anything like that. That was not my intentions. My intentions was to say, let's find some quality candidates in the future. That was it. So I stepped away from that partway through, just because as I was looking to run for office here, it was something I said, okay, I need to step away. So how it's being run now, what the makeup of it is, my understanding from it is there's a large group of people, a mixture of both sides that have different interests, different thoughts, different things that they want to see done. The biggest interest is making sure we have a great community. That's all I understand of that. Unions, yeah, wow, why would they, support somebody that has conservative background? The thing is, I spoke to them. I've employed union employees, IBW workers. When my company ZDI, which is now Room Ready, that was what we first started with. I was the only non-union employee in that company, except for maybe some office people. And I learned a lot from that. And I looked at the skilled labor they brought, and I've communicated with them about how I think they play a part in Bloomington, how they play a part in our economy. And that's important. Again, working on both sides. My vision from the very beginning is working from different groups, different people that think differently than me, that have different, things that they want to have done, but everyone has the goal is how do we grow the economy and what makes sense for the right job, what makes sense and how we do things. And I look at that as what it's showing is they believe in who I am and my leadership. They believe that I will bring business and bring the economy in a different way. And I know Mboka had talked about how it's the easy thing is economy and some of those other things. That is not easy. If you have not run a business and had over 100 employees and trying to figure out how in the world you're going to pay their salaries and how their kids are going to have insurance and how they're going to do these things, it is not easy. You sacrifice a lot, and sometimes you don't pay yourself for months to years. And that is something that is not an easy thing to bring business, to start a business, to keep a business going long term. So that is where I look at as what they look at me and how they're supporting me is saying, these individual PACs or individual, even the chamber PAC endorse me. They look at it and he's, wow, here's a business leader. Here's someone who's put money in this economy. I've grown businesses $30+ million. And this is not because I cheated something, did something inappropriate. This is something that is like, my commitment is to the city, my commitment is to the people of the city. And it will be working with both sides. And I think that's important. We have to do that. I'm tired of the fighting that's going on. And again, I want to see where we can work together. And my commitment is to the city of Bloomington. My commitment is to the people of this community, and making sure that it's not, the answer isn't let's raise taxes all the time. Let's, we can't keep on kicking that thing down the street. It's just like someone else is going to pay for it. So long-winded answer to your question or the person's question. I hope that answers it. I will continue to, if there's more detail they want to know, I'm willing to talk offline if they want to talk more. I have nothing to hide, and feel it's exciting to see that everyone is interested in me leading Bloomington.
Thank you, Mike. There's a question now that really is directed toward both of you. And I'm going to have Mboka go first. This question in regards to dealing with council members, and maybe because Mboka, you've already been on the council, so you're having a little experience already. But the questionnaire is asking specifically about Jen Carrillo, who has her own little stir up every once in a while and has described herself as a Marxist, and that seems at odds with actually both of you gentlemen. So curious to see how you are, and there are efforts at electing other council members that are aligned with Jen Carrillo, and so there could be some issues coming on the council that this is going to not just go away. So how do you address dealing with challenging council members if you are serving as mayor? Mboka?
Yeah, so of course, I'm in a different position now. So I like to leave room for, whoever is, responsible to do that. But if I were elected mayor, I think one of the things that I would do is to make sure that we all understand what the city's strategic goals are. So one of the things that I think I would do to begin with is to have a strategic planning session so that everybody understands where the city is trying to go and they can see themselves fit within that. We were supposed to have one right after the actually not right after the election, but in 2020, around May or so, or June, I think. But because of the pandemic, we had to postpone it. But that is definitely one of the things that I would do to begin with. The other thing, so right after the election, it's something that I would look to do. Then the other thing that I would do is to really invest some time one-on-one to get to know those council members and really share my experience as a council member of what it takes to be successful. That is one of the other things. Of course, you can't convince everyone because everybody is different and they have their own goals. But I definitely believe that it's something that I 100% have to try and to make sure that those council members understand how they fit within the whole, and also how certain actions might be detrimental not only to them but also to the group. The other thing that I would encourage is also attendance at, a number of different things, such as, the Illinois Municipal League has a number of trainings to help council members understand what their roles are and the different issues that they might be facing. And that's something that I would also encourage for those council members to be involved in. And I do think, ultimately, the council members do have to understand that, voters, every 2 years or so on the council get to make a decision, and there will be a reckoning when it comes to that. But I definitely, one of the things that I should also add is just, to get council members to get to know each other a little bit better, and interact with one another. So having a little bit more interaction so that people can be collegial with one another. This is, in my 10 years on the council, I would say this is the first time that I've seen a bigger chasm, I would say, between council members, because in the past, although people had different opinions, and we're not necessarily the best of friends, but it seemed to be a little bit more collegial. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mike, would you care to address that question?
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to my experience with the 25 plus years of experience in business and working with people, you got to sit down with each individual, find out what their priorities are, what their true goals are, and for the city, we got to put away our own selfish aspirations and really look at how are we going to work as a group, as a team. And it's a tall order. There has been some definite changes. And I think I always look at there's something in everyone that wants to see something better, and I'm hoping I can reach to them. It is going to be a challenge because we've seen a lot that's gone on in the last couple of years, and just we need to lead by example. We need to say, this is how I lead, this is how I act, this is what we do. Not saying anybody's ideas are unimportant or not the top priority, but we need to sit down and say, how are we going to make these things go? How do we sit down as a city council? How do we sit with the city manager and saying, these are the priorities we need to hit this year. We got to hit these things. What are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen? And I'm hoping everyone comes along. And there's always, in any organization, you always have somebody that doesn't, or has a different view or a different way of doing it. And we have to, that's something as a skill that you have to learn and be able to do. And that's something that's my focus, is bringing the council together, getting us on to what is important, what it needs to happen, and knowing that everyone has something important on their agenda. Every ward has something for their ward that needs to be dealt with, and we need to deal with them. But also too, there's some core things the city still needs to happen and function in order for us to be a city. I mean, I want people to come here. I don't want to scare people away because our streets are horrible, our infrastructure is crumbling, our buildings are falling apart, they're empty. We need to say, hey, if you want a better Bloomington, we're going to have to work together to make that happen. And I look at it as my proven track record of what I've done over the years. I've done that over and over again, and it's not easy, and it's always a new situation, but it's something I know I'm up for the challenge, and know that we can come together and do better.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Another question from our audience in regards to, which kind of comes out of what you were just speaking of, Mike, that according to the numbers, there's about a $700 million short behind, that the city is $700 million behind in the infrastructure repairs. How do you plan to address meeting those needs without raising, as the question is phrased, how do each of you plan to address these needs without raising additional taxes and fees? Obviously, our citizens and businesses cannot withstand additional expense. So that's our question. I think, Mike, you get a first shot this time.
First, yeah, why not? Yeah, that is something that is interesting. Is over the years, as I got more involved and talked to Public Works and said, okay, we all know that there's infrastructure underneath the ground that no one sees that needs several $100 million worth of repairs and actually permanent fixes, not just patchwork. And they agreed. It's like, yeah, we have, I can't remember the number at that time, but I know it's risen since then. That's been over a year or so ago. And yeah, a lot of times you talk about is like, do you raise taxes or you get rid of services? I mean, that's the two options that people present. And the other option that I'm bringing to the table is, which is it's a longer play, but it's something that will happen as this time and not continue to look at raising taxes, is bringing economic growth, bringing businesses, bringing jobs to this community, bringing a diverse group of businesses and jobs and growing it here. And that's where that whole idea is having this to be the entrepreneurial capital of the Midwest, is bringing those things here, infilling the places that are kind of have lost interest being developed, and we have to look at that. And the one of the things, and I feel is one of the biggest problems is we talk about where has this been going on. This doesn't show up to the 700 million, if that's the actual number, I don't know, but if it is, this didn't show up overnight. So in the last 10 plus years, where has this been? It's like we had another city manager that I didn't feel like was doing the greatest of jobs. He did a great job when he first started back in the 90s, but it wasn't the person we needed currently, and things fell apart. So in some ways I look at it as, okay, is that the city manager's fault, the old city manager? And is it the fault of the council that didn't move forward and push this harder back in 2010 through the 2017? That's my question, is why wasn't this addressed then? Why wasn't this, why didn't we start thinking about that instead of now all of a sudden everything's at a disrepair to where now it's going to cost more money to fix because we waited so long. And now we have a great city manager who is actually focused on doing the things that should have been done 10 years ago. And that is great. So I give credit to Tim Gleason, to Billy Tyus, and our director of finance that is really putting the things together and trying to figure this out. That's where that's happening. It's not from the previous group. And that's the frustrating thing. So I look at it as we're on a path. We're going to have to figure out is like, well, what are we going to do? Reduce services? Who wants to, which thing do we cut? That's a hard call. Do we raise taxes? I don't want to. The taxes continue to go up, and it's just something I just don't feel is the thing to do. So I look at it as we got to figure out growth. We got to get development going. We need to do that, and in conjunction with all this at the same time. If we don't start doing it today, it's going to get worse. That number is going to continue to rise, and we're going to have to raise taxes or cut services. So that's why, again, my expertise is going to help with that. Is we got to quit waiting for something to happen on its own. We can't wait on our current businesses to do something for us. We can't wait for some windfall to happen that like, oh, look, we have money. That's the thing we've been doing too long for so long, is we wait and wait and wait for someone else to take care of us. We need to do it, and we need to get out there and do it ourselves.
Hey, Mike, thank you. Mboka, how would you address the needs without raising taxes and fees?
Yeah, you know, that's it's an interesting question, of course. You know, and I would say that we didn't get there overnight. It happened over a long period of time that even predates me. I can give you a number that I remember. I know that, you know, back in 2000, we spent virtually nothing on our street repair. Okay, and now we are at a point where we're at 7-point-something million, you know, for street repair. So we've made some progress over the years. Certainly not as much as you know, people would like to see, but I do think that we definitely have made progress, and we should recognize that. One of the things, you know, that I know about Bloomington that makes Bloomington, in my opinion, an attractive place to live, it's, you know, it is relatively, and I emphasize relatively, affordable as a place to live, you know, compared to a place like Chicago or a New York City. You know, people find that they are still able to live a good standard, good quality of life without having to expend too much of their money. So that's something that I always keep in mind, and that I would like to continue, meaning that I am not, you know, I tend to be very careful in terms of how we do increase certain fees. So when I do feel like, you know, the fees that are proposed are a little bit too aggressive, oftentimes I will say, no, we need to take a step back and do a little bit less, because I'm thinking, you know, because it's not my money. I think about other people on the other side, you know, even $2-3 a month, you know, might make a difference to them. However, what I would say is that sometimes, you know, there are some things that, you know, given the magnitude of it, you do have to, you know, to invest a little bit more money, and it takes, you know, everyone in the community, investing, and it might take a smaller, doing smaller fees sometimes, is a good way to go. But another thing that I think, I can tell you about our master plan, water master plan. We're going to be looking at that. There will be a fee study. There is also our sewer master plan, where we did a fee study as well. And those are things, when the fees came up, those are things that I voted against because I thought the fees were a little bit too aggressive, and I would have gone for a smaller fee, just to make it more palatable to individuals. But there are other things that I think we can do. Again, we're hearing great praise for City Manager Gleason, and I will say that he's been somebody really good to work with, very good ideas. And one of the things that we have done is to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of seeking additional funding from the state, from the federal government as well. And that's something that I would look to do as well, to really reduce the burden of the financial burden on our residents. So those are a couple of the things that I'm thinking about. Definitely not interested in taxes, because I think when you raise taxes, you have the tendency of the small users, subsidizing the biggest users, and I think fees are a much better way to be able to fund some of these things. And that's just the reality of it. That's just the way it works. That way, the folks who use the service more, get to pay a little bit more.
Okay, thank you. I'm working at trying to combine some questions that kind of actually have a common theme. And one is that whether or not you can identify what you would put as a priority in addressing if you were to be elected as mayor in terms of issues with the city faces: infrastructure, taxes, the various and sundry challenges that are before the city. What would you identify as a priority?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll go, it's with only two of you, there's no way other than just going back and forth. But Mboka, let's give you that shot first.
Sure.
What would you address as a priority among the various issues that the city faces?
Yeah, definitely for me, it has to be the infrastructure, because that is informed by my experience and what I've heard, particularly streets. I do know in some areas of town that are a little bit older, it is sewers. We hear about that on the city council, but I do think streets are one of the things that it's there, it's visible, it's there for everyone to see, and I do think when people do see that and look at other things that we're doing and say, wait a minute, my street here hasn't been fixed, in the last 2 or 3 years, or, I've been driving on this street and, it's been a problem, but I'm seeing you doing all these other things over here, then it's very difficult for them to have trust in what it is that we're doing. So that's why I've made that a priority for me, is that and I know we're not going to be able to catch up, in 4 years, but to really make some substantial progress when it comes to that, so that we reduce the level of conversation, but also the level of what's the word I'm looking for? The level of discontent that we have when it comes to streets.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Hold on, gotta get the mute off there. Sorry.
Yes, good.
Yes. So yeah, it's again one of the many priorities, and they all kind of going to go together, is really getting back to the core of infrastructure and streets. but we have to have a plan of basically looking at how do we do them both at the same time. Water and sewer and roads, if we're doing them, we got to have a plan that really shows us doing both at the same time. So let's not tear up the road and then have to re-tear it up again because we forgot to put new plumbing in. We need to be thoughtful, mindful about how we do that, be very accountable for this. I think sometimes we've lost accountability to what the positions that we're all in, and we need to say, hold ourselves accountable and saying, what are we going to do if this doesn't happen? We've heard this promise before, but nothing is, it's slow going. There's a lot of roads and sidewalks and things that need to be done, and we're way behind, and it's going to take some serious time. So we need to make sure we continue to stay on that focus. And again, also our crumbling infrastructure that we have around our community, by not addressing buildings and some empty buildings and things that are really becoming eyesores in this community. If we don't start really working on that and getting developers and other people excited about some of the areas, it's just going to continue to get worse. And it's not inviting to the community. It's not inviting for people from the outside of the community. We have to do that. And that's one of the priorities, is infrastructure and infilling some of the places that have been empty, that are showing empty. You look at Eastland Mall, you look at downtown is always a touchy subject. How do we do that? How do we do it with a way where it's not costing the taxpayers more money to do it? And I think there are ways you can do that. And I think there's stuff even on west of Main Street. There are places there that really need it. We need some better broadband so people can start growing their business and start doing things that maybe they're prohibitive doing right now because of our infrastructure is not laid out correctly. So again, dusting off some of those old plans that we've out there that we've never done anything because everyone's afraid to do them. And that's the thing is, as a business owner, consultant, I've taken risk, I've done it, but I also take responsibility in knowing it's my responsibility to make sure when I'm leading that I have to answer to it, and I'm going to make sure it doesn't fail. And yet there are going to be failures, there are going to be things, but again, getting back up and making sure it gets done, and that the people in so many years from now saying, oh, we actually did something, we actually stopped promising, we started delivering on our promises. And I think that's what we need to start doing more of.
Okay, good. But let me move on to another question from one of our listeners. There's a question in regards to, actually a couple of questions that I'm putting into one, and that's in regards to public safety and your support of our law enforcement agencies in the city of Bloomington, kind of what you view as a needed action to help in our public safety area. And also, the other question, part of the question was, would you be publicly vocal about your support of police in this community? And we're going to start with Mike again. I mean, we're just put you both on the spot at one time or another. So I'm evenly distributing.
Yep.
They put you on the spot. Quickly answer. There you go.
Yes.
So Mike's
I'll
turn.
quickly answer this.
Yeah.
Yes, this is something that's been asked of all the candidates. What is our thoughts on the police? First thing, I'm going to be right up front. I'm not interested in defunding the police. It is a very dangerous thing. It's a word that is unfortunately was used, and it has a lot of heavy weight to it. Our police are already understaffed. That they're already understaffed. We should be at a certain number. I think at one time was quoted, it was 128 or something like that. We're not at that. We should even be higher than that. Actually, our growth of our community, our city, we actually should be higher than that, the number that the mark is right now. And we're not even hitting that one. We're not even hitting that. So we need to continue to look at how do we help and keep the community safe. That is the most important thing. Community safety is so important. And we've had some recent incidences in our community that have, gotten a little bit more homicides in our community, more things that have happened. And it is a concern of mine. I've had people reach out to me. I've driven to people's homes because they're saying, I'm afraid to leave my house. I'm afraid to be on my main floor. What do I do? And I've been talking to them and saying, we need to get more answers. And talking to the police, they're saying, we're doing training, we're doing all these things. Our interest is keeping this community safe. And yes, I have no problem with saying I back the police. That is not something, I know that's been a question. It's like, it shouldn't be a question. It's like, I back them. I trust them with my life. And I know some people don't, and I know there's things out there that is more national, and it's like, but in our city, we've done a very good job. Our past police chiefs are, hopefully the current next one that's coming up will be just as good as the ones in the past. And I'm looking at it as I want to work with them closely, understand what their needs are, making sure they get the needs, and also too making sure that the public feels like, okay, there's this communication, there's this understanding. And I think that's what we have to do, is we have to continue to work on that relationship as a community with our own police department. And looking at it as what we're going to do with some of the new laws that are coming into place, it actually could cause a rise in costs to make sure that everyone's being taken care of in a safe way. So yeah, there's a lot there to unpack, and I will stop there, let Mamboka go and give his thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mike. Mamboka, please.
Yeah, I, support the police 100%. I've been asked that in many different forums, whether it was on the radio or, in community meetings. I definitely support them 100%. And as I've said before in previous forums, the police is at this moment with about 128 authorized officers. We have never been able to fill that number. And I've spoken to several, police chiefs, and they said they can't remember a time where they were at full strength. For a city our size, we should be closer to about 200. I would say, particularly not only giving the number of people, but also the geographical area. So you have to think, I would say to the listeners, just think about the fact that, when was the last time you had a speeding ticket, in Bloomington? Don't answer that. But, I would say, in the town of Normal, it's a lot easier to get a speeding ticket because, it's a smaller geographical area. They have more police officers. And, whereas for ourselves, we're a lot more spread out. So this would not be a good time for us to do that. And again, you have to think about the debate at the state level, and some of the, with the criminal justice reform, has quite a few people within the police force, not just Bloomington, demoralized. So thinking about whether or not they want to be in the profession. And when you add to that, to the fact that, folks, there are also less entrants into the police force at this moment. People are not thinking about joining a police force. They don't want to join law enforcement because of, the criminal justice reform. So what that's going to do is to put us in a very difficult position of having to fight with other law enforcement agencies to recruit. And when you have to do that, then you have to pay more money to recruit those individuals into your police force. So what I would recommend is that we be a little bit more careful about the rhetoric, because we, with the rhetoric, this kind of rhetoric talking about defunding, negative attitude towards the police, we might be our own worst enemies, and we'll end up having to pay the price financially. So I don't think it is, it's a very good thing to do. And plus, I would also say, when we are speaking negatively about our own police force, it makes it very difficult to attract good candidates, particularly when you're talking about minorities. Who wants to work for a police force or a department that people speak negatively of? And I do think, that is also not justified. Because I would say our Bloomington police force has done a great job over the years, generally working to be ahead of the curve. I mean, we've had body cameras for the past 2 years, ahead of many other police agencies. That was done very carefully studied to identify the right kind of equipment. We have a number of policies on the books, such as the use of force, and how that gets reviewed at all levels, with our, commanders and things like that. We're working to try to hire more minority police officers. So there's a lot of stuff that we do well. And I would add, finally, that we this past summer, we all saw there were incidents of looting in the community. I do believe there were two. But I think our police force responded admirably. When others in other cities responded with violence, our police force prioritized, life, and wanted to make sure that they did things the right way. And yes, the individuals who looted were confronted afterwards, but they really did it in a smart way. And I was very, very impressed with that, because they understood the gravity of the moment. And that to me tells me that we do have some smart people working for the Bloomington Police Force. Now, does that mean that we cannot have conversations just like any other department to work and to make progress? Yes, we can do that. We can do that. But that's what you do in a community where you care about one another. You sit down. If you have concerns, you express concerns. There's avenues to express those concerns, and then you try to resolve them in a way that we can all be proud of, but not to pit ourselves against each other as if we were enemies. We're part of the same community, and that's what we have to do. You're muted.
Did it again. I didn't want a little in your ear while you were talking. All right. I have a question from one of our listeners about what can be done to grow our emergency responder departments, not just police, while at the same time needing to make repairs. You're talking about a lot of infrastructure costs and trying to help develop our emergency responders. So any thoughts or ideas about how to approach that issue? And Mboka, you get the first shot at it.
Yeah, can you, I'm not sure I understand the nature of the question. So
well, as it stated, it says, what can be done to grow our emergency responders departments while at the same time needing to make repairs to infrastructure and roads? That trying to grow our fire departments and our medical teams and yeah. Police. I mean, you did speak to that a little bit on the police, but I don't know if you could add and build on that.
Yeah. Well, I do know, I mean, the fire department, I had a conversation with them as well, and that, they're short-staffed and we definitely need to continue, not only, short staff in terms of just numbers, but also, they're looking to also hire minorities. And that is something that is incredibly difficult. But I definitely do think that, this is something that we need to continue to work on, to examine our budgets. I can tell you that, in the past couple of years, the city manager has made some changes with various departments that has allowed us to save some money. Okay, so I can think about, for example, water department, combining with public works to become one entity. Well, we save some money there. I can also think about our legal team that has been brought in-house, which allowed us to save some money there as well, something on the order of $300,000. I think with the water department and public works combining, it was also a similar figure. So I think it's just a matter of finding more efficiencies over time. And again, with the police, you can see that the budget is there to get to 128, but It's just that we just can't get to that number because of, the various vacancies that we might have. People leave the force or because people are, we have some people who are on medical leave and things like that. So I do think, this is definitely something that we can work on. The money's there. We have to go out there and recruit people, but we have to make the place attractive. So it's all in the way that we talk to people about our departments and what we can do. How good it is to work there. But, in the example of the police, if we speak so negatively about them, well, it's going to make it very hard for us to be able to recruit people. One other thing too, I would mention is because we do have a challenge, that I've heard of often is also our location. We're very good at bringing people in the door. But then oftentimes, other entities, come and they can pluck away, some of our good employees because some of them may have come from nearby the Chicago area and they'd like to be closer to family and things like that. So those are things that we definitely have to sit down and figure out a plan to make those positions more attractive and make people stay here for the long run.
Okay, thank you. Mike, would you care to address the issue of growing our emergency first responders and at the same time balancing and taking care of the infrastructure needs?
Yes, I wish it was just do one thing and then everything is great. So yeah, talking to both the police department and the fire department over the last year or so, and just talking about their needs and what they have. I mean, they have great standards, and that's why we have such a great police force, is because they have a standard and they follow a stricter standard than most do on recruitment. And recruitment is down. I mean, it's obvious why, because people, who wants it, the people are concerned about making that their profession. They care about people, but there's also too, they're worried about their own family. So it's getting people interested in it. And in the fire department, same thing. It's they have a different situation, getting people interested. As I talked to interim police chief over there, Eric West, is just talking about how do we do recruitment. And it's it's almost like you would get people in and then they're not from this area and it's hard for retainage. And this is something I went through when I recruited physicians and things like that. It is, if they're not from this area, if you can't basically have them come from your community, a lot of times it's hard for them because they want to go to Chicago, they want to go somewhere else because that's where they're from. So looking at recruitment, looking at getting people excited about it at a younger age. And I know it takes time. You're building your bench basically. And I look at it for the fire department. There's certain requirements, you have to be willing to, run into a building that's on fire, and you also have to have these designations, ALS, and you have to have these, types of life-saving skills that you have to have, that they want them both dual basically trained, because that's what they need to do. So again, looking back at how they're recruiting, and they're not, it's just that the numbers aren't there, and people do leave because they're like, I want to go to where I live. So we got to do a better job of figuring out how to recruit younger and get people that love this community, that want to stay in this community, that were born in this community, people like myself that have been here, and it's like, I just want to give back. How do I do that? It's like, well, here's a great opportunity as you're going through school, like, oh, I didn't know that the fire department does this. They have all these things. I didn't know the police department has this that is welcoming, and I feel like I can be part of it. And I think, again, is we have to look at that. And then the balance of just the finances of how do we do infrastructure and how do we continue to improve on that. And I look at it as there's different budgets and different money can go to different things. And I look at it as, yes, we do have to have efficiencies. And I am this is what I lived on for 20 plus years about efficiencies, looking at how do we become more efficient? How do we put people in jobs that really that's what they're made to do? They just love this job. They're good at it. And we continue to do that, and we figure out efficiencies. And that's the biggest thing I'm about, is looking at how do we become more efficient. I don't want people to lose their jobs. I don't want to raise taxes, but there's a balance that we have to do. So there's going to be some things that we're going to have to make some hard choices and decisions, But I think if we do it right and explain that this is why we're doing it and this is where we're going, and find people other jobs, other places, and make sure that it's done. And again, I'm not saying cutting jobs. Again, it's just looking at how do we combine departments? How do we look at a process that maybe is like, well, we've been doing this process for 30 plus years. Well, maybe there's a different way we can do that. And really working, and this is where the collaboration comes into, is working with the city manager, collaborating on ideas and saying, here's what I've seen. What have you seen? What can I do? How can I help you move this forward? How do I go to the police department, the police chief, the fire chief, and saying, hey, I'm an advocate for you. How do I help promote your area? How do I get people excited about wanting to say, I want to be a police officer. I want to be on the fire department. And that's where it comes down to, is that is the type of thing, is getting people interested in an area that's very dangerous, and it plays a huge important part of our community is for safety. So again, balancing that out, and then balancing out is how do we find ways to reallocate, move things around to so we can function as a city that we're supposed to.
Okay, thank you very much. we're gonna have time for one more question, I think. And then we'll do a recap. So I will try to, if technically it makes it work, I will be emailing both Mboka and Mike the questions that were presented tonight, so that they can address them directly to the people who have been asking. We just don't have time to go through all of them, but I do think there was one question that seemed to cover a very important issue, because it's not only a local issue, it's a state issue. And I know there's a little bit of a connection there, but the questionnaire asked, how do you view the problem with public employee pension fund and that expense continuing to increase so dramatically? How do we approach that to help with balancing all the other economic needs of our city? So Mike, you're first up on this one.
Wow.
So go ahead.
I get to do that one first. All right.
Yeah.
Pensions. Wow. I'll speak to both state and local. The state is, I wish I could help with that. That is something that is like, it is an enormous mess. It's been there for a long time, and it continues to grow. And there's going to be some hard decisions, and I don't get to make those decisions. For a local level, again, if we want to talk the two main ones that you talk about is police and fire pensions. Very important. A lot of things you have to understand about those pensions is that each person, in the Bloomington Police Department and Fire Department, they put a percentage, every paycheck the officer or the person who works for those departments put in about 9+% of their paycheck, every paycheck they put into that pension. So it's not like the city's just doing it all. They put in theirs, the city puts in their portion of it too. And then one of the things you have to understand is that they don't, so for the individual people, they also don't cover Social Security. So they basically this is their Social Security check at the end of when they retire. So letting you know, understand that if anybody ever didn't realize that that's not a contribution that's going in there for them. So the pension is important to them, for them, and it's getting out of hand because now they have two tiers. First, there's the tier saying you can get out and retire by this age and you get this amount for pension. Now they moved to tier 2, to where it's like, okay, now you have to be in longer and you get this percentage. And it continues to make it more difficult for the people that are protecting us. And we have to figure out how to do that. Currently, we're running at, the city has chosen to go, the goal was 90%, and the city chose to go 100% all in. Of putting the money into that. Talking to different people, I don't know, and this is talking for the different departments, there's mixed thoughts on that. Is like, do we really need it? We just want to make sure that when we retire, we have money. It's not saying drop it down and what are we going to do and taking money away from it. It's not that. It's just more of what is economical, what can we do with that percentage that possibly could be used for something else for them, or however it needs to be done, because pensions are, there's a certain strict rules about money. So you look at that, it is continuing to rise, and we have to figure out how we're going to fund it. What I've heard from the state is they're going to kick that thing down a little further. 2040 I've heard that goal has been moved. I've heard it's been pushed out longer. So surprising, because they don't have an answer, and they know that they're not making the money. Investments hasn't been doing as well as they thought, and that's where it is a balanced investment in what they're doing with it. So the pension thing is a very complicated thing. As I've been talking to the different groups who manage the pensions for them, it is not just straight, we put in money, we grow it, grow it. It's like there's the percentage continues to grow, by 2040, hit that number, the 100%, we have to put more and more in every year to make sure we hit that 2040. Well, now the state's saying, well, we're not going to be able to do it. And I don't know if we can, what we're going to do. So I think that's going to be extended. But again, so we hit 100%, then that's the next question. So then what? Then we still have next year after that, the next year after that. It's not like we're 100% and we're done. It continues to go. So we have to rethink how this is being funded, how we're committing and making a commitment to the people that do get pensions, and how do we make sure they're covered. But do we need 100% all in a bank that at any time? Not everyone's going to retire at the same time. It's not going to happen unless, people just say, I'm done being a police officer. That's the only one I'm concerned about, is people are wanting early retirement. They're willing to take the less of their pension because they just don't feel like they're wanted, needed, or just they don't feel safe. And it's concerning to me, and it's sad to me that that's why someone would early retire, because they just feel like the mood of them is not good. So again, want to support them, want to support those pensions. I want to support the city pensions. But again, we have to look at how are they being funded? What are we doing long term? Is this something sustainable? And right now the state is showing it is not sustainable. So what are we going to do? What is the solution? So we have to look at that. And that's where we're working with the city manager and the individual pension fund holders and saying, what do you see? Is there something better we can do? Let's not let the state lead us in this. We need to take care of the people that are helping us, protecting us, and the other people that are keeping the city going. We need to lead in figuring out a better way than waiting for the state to tell us how to do it. And yeah, I just think that we gotta lead by example.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Mavulka?
Well, thank you. Just to kind of take you back into history a little bit. So, back, I believe in 2013, we did have an actuary consultant come to the city and help us develop this policy that led to us looking to fund our pension funds for both police and fire at a level of 100% by 2040. And one of the discussions that we had at that moment, and the reason for doing that, was to be able to provide generational equity, to make sure that those, some people were not funding, some taxpayers were not funding people, the funds more than others. So that's why that policy was developed over such a long period of time, and to make sure that we had the adequate funding that we needed for those pension funds. And again, for me, it's a question of, we made a promise that we were going to fund those pensions, and even before my time, and that's something that I strongly believe in. When you make a promise to people, it is your word, and that's what you have to keep, because otherwise you have no credibility whatsoever. So we do need to continue to do that. Now, as I understand it, the state is working to consolidate, to pool the money for investment purposes. So we are still waiting to see how that is going to impact us as a city. But I do think the main thing to remember here is to really keep our promise to the people who provide for our safety. According to the state, they are thinking that, by pooling all of these funds together, they could earn, over $12 billion, over 20 years, subject to market condition. But we do have to see how that's going to work out, because, the market, as you know, is not, it's not, it's not something that we can predict every day or any day for that matter. But the main thing to remember here is that, when you make a promise to people, you have to keep it no matter what the conditions are. And that's what I'm committed to doing.
All right. Thank you. Well, gentlemen, you've both done a good job covering questions that our attendees have asked. And as I said, I will be forwarding on to both of the candidates the questions that we didn't get to tonight. So we're at the point now where we're going to kind of wrap it up by doing a reverse order of the start. And we're going to give each of the gentlemen a couple of minutes to wrap up and share any thoughts that they haven't said yet and want to reinforce. So Mboka, you are up first.
Sure. Well, first I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their Thursday. I'm sure there's other things like must-see TV and other things that they could be doing, and that definitely shows how involved they are and how much they care about the community. I think what is clear is that we all care about the community. That's why we step up to do these kinds of things, because there's definitely no glory in it, and and there is it comes with quite a bit of stress and things like that, but it's definitely something that is worthwhile to be able to serve one's community. A couple of things that I do want to remind people is that I've been on the council for a number of years, and I think experience does count. I understand how council members feel because I've been there. I understand how they work, and I do believe that I can lead the council to be successful. The city of Bloomington is one where we are incredibly fortunate, because we have been, unlike other communities, we've been able to weather the pandemic in a much better fashion than others have. And this is what makes me hopeful for the future, because I do know, once we are out of this phase, literally, we will, I think the city will come roaring back, because within, the past year, we've been able to do fairly well under the current conditions. But again, I would say, I would remind people, that we, I believe that we are still very divided as a community over a number of issues, whether it's, the police defunding, national issues, partisan politics, and things like that. And we're not going to be able to make progress on the other issues, because we're going to be distracted by the negativity and the polarization. And I do feel that it's a very important thing for us to get a handle on, because I've seen that on the campaign trail, where people are really having a hard time putting aside some of those divisions, and they want to kind of hold on to them. So and that I believe is a very, very difficult thing to do. It's not that the other stuff is easy, but I think bringing people together and uniting them is a very difficult thing to do. And I do believe that I have a lot of different qualities, and I've done that in many places in my life, like, putting soccer teams together and soccer parents, uniting them, that's a very difficult thing to do. So I hope that the voters will agree with me. I look forward to, to April 6th, and I'm humbly asking for everyone's vote. Thank you. You're muted.
All right, Mike. It's your turn, sir, please. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you again. Thank you, Mboka. Thank you, Connie, and the panel, the participants in this tonight. It is very important. I'm glad that people felt that it was important to come and listen. It is an important thing. April 6th, you're going to have a new mayor, no matter what. And it is an important thing to get out the votes, get out there and vote, because it would be a shame to say, oh, I decided not to. You need to do it. It's important. This community is important to me. I've been part of this community for a very long time, since 1983, and it means a lot to me. The people I've been worked with, people that have mentored me, the people, this is why I'm doing this. This is not for the title. It's not for anything. It is for the people of this community to give back and to be able to put in the hours. I'm going to be putting these hours in. I'm going to be putting at least 25 plus hours a week in. And that is my commitment. That's my promise, is to commit to working in just throughout this time. We're going through an unprecedented time of COVID. COVID has put us in a place we've never seen, not in my lifetime. And this is not something that's going to come out. And yes, we're resilient. Yes, we live in a bubble, and people question that. It's like, we've been very resilient, and over the years of things that have happened, we haven't seen that much. But what happens when that time when it doesn't correct itself? We're like, oh, look, it didn't happen. The time we realize that is the time it's going to be too late. The time we realized the mall was going down, it was too late. The time downtown Bloomington a long time ago, it was too late. So again, can we bring those things back? Yes, but it's going to be a lot harder, and it's going to be a lot different than it was before. It's not going to be the days of past. And I look at that as, that's where my leadership comes into, is I've been through this. I've weathered through a lot of different storms and have come out of this working with people, knowing that we all have differences of opinions, but knowing that I care, and I truly am going to work for the people of this community, what is best for the community. And that's no matter what your background is, anything. It's like, no, I'm out there for you, because we need to grow this economy. We need to bring people, get jobs back to this economy, into this community. And we need to grow, and we need to be able to figure out how to get a handle on this infrastructure, the roads and the sewers and pipes that are, it's just, the cost is going, it's not going to get cheaper ever. It's going to continue to get more expensive. We don't address it now. We need to do it. So I look at it as, the important thing is, yes, get out and vote. It's going to be a interesting 4 years for whoever it is. And I hope that is me. I hope that I am asking for your vote on April 6th or before. You can still vote early. Just get out there, vote for what you think is best for this city and what is important. And the city to me is important to me, and it always has been. And I want to see this. I want to leave the next generation something to be excited about. That's what I want to do. I want to make the next generation be like, wow, this is an amazing place. Look at all the people that came together and made this a great place to live. So thank you again for your time and to listen to what we had to say tonight.
Thank you both for coming tonight and sharing. Thanks to the attendees. It is April 6th is the election that an individual vote has more power than any time. In a national election and the statewide elections, you're one of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. In this case, your vote has more of an impact than you would ever find in any other election. And people need to be waking up to the fact, the power that they have by going out and voting for this consolidated election. So join me and go into your neighbors and shake them a bit and say, you know, you've got to go vote and be engaged, because the future of our cities is at stake. So I thank these guys for spending the evening. We're going to be posting the video on our website. Share it, talk about it, and come back Tuesday night, where we'll have our school board candidates for both Unit 5 and District 87. And you can, those are often the unsung elections of any of our community, and yet they have such an impact on the future of our community because they're dealing with our children. So please come back and tune in, spread the word. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. And I will get ready to permanently mute myself for the night.